Hello everybody, welcome back to the Blind Press YouTube and Twitch channels. And it is Friday, and I've got a whole bunch of interesting things to show you guys today. A lot of them can poly, but apply for TikTok streaming access. What's this now? That's something I'll have to check out. Anyway, sorry, that's just something I saw in my streamlabs, software. They have these things near the mixer that are like announcements and stuff, and one just popped up that said, apply for TikTok streaming access. Which would be grand for me because I can't use their studio app because it's not Mac based. It's only for PC. So if I could get streaming access to TikTok through Streamlabs, that would be really good. So I'll have to check that out. Anyway, I hope you guys are all having a wonderful Friday. We've got, like I said, we've got 3 videos to go over. And I do have my kidlets home still because this cold that they've got is, like, it's not a super bad one, but it's bad enough, and it's disgusting weather outside, so we don't want it to develop into something worse, right? So we got them home again, so please bear with me while we get our way through this. So before we get into our can poly fiascos, we're going to do, or you know what we've learned from the foreign interference inquiry. That's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna do a catch up of like the social media drama on Sunday, I think. And that's what I'll do. But this is important, this stuff. I found this video. It's from Global News, and they have a correspondent here, Robert Fife, who I've watched Robert Fife as a political correspondent for years, even back when I was in high school studying politics. And he's pretty unbiased, so I like to go with what he's talking about. Now, Trudeau testified yesterday Wednesday, in regards to election interference from China. And we now have access to all of the CSIS documents. They're now public. And we're now actually starting to understand just how bad this got with our election interference. And I just wanted to go over this video with you guys and kind of show you guys how bad this is, and how deep this goes.
Ultimately, democracy only works when people are confident in its ability to keep them safe, but also be the articulation of what they want for their community and their country. That's where confidence in the integrity of the elections in 2019, 2021 is so important.
That was a clip from Trudeau testifying on Wednesday, by the way.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau testified on Wednesday at the inquiry into foreign interference, which is looking into allegations that countries like China interfered in our elections. We've also heard
countries. Keep that in mind. Countries like China.
From important officials and cabinet ministers.
Plural.
And there's been a ton of information being made public. So today, We're speaking to the Globe's Ottawa bureau chief, Bob Fife. He'll take us through the most important things we've learned so far from the public inquiry. I'm Menaka Raman-Wilms, and this is The Decibel from the Globe and Mail.
Oh, Globe and Mail. Sorry, not Global News.
Bob, thanks so much for joining me.
Always a pleasure to talk to you.
So this inquiry has been going on for the past few months. Can you just remind us, though, what is the purpose of it? Like, what is it meant to accomplish?
Okay, well, let's step back a year ago. There was a series of leaks of top secret and secret CSIS documents that laid out a sophisticated Chinese state operation to interfere in the 2019 and 2021 elections. These were CSIS documents and investigations that showed that China and its proxies were trying to elect people to Parliament who they believed would either be neutral or would favor the national interest of Beijing.
China and its proxies. That's important. Okay? So China and its proxies were meddling in both the 2019 and 2021 elections to try to make sure that people that either wouldn't give a fuck what China did or would help China get things done. So that's what they wanted. They wanted people in charge, like in the Canadian government, that could either look the other way and be neutral about it, or would serve their interests.
The Liberal government had consistently rejected any calls from the opposition parties for a public inquiry. They had appointed former Governor General David Johnston to do a report. And finally, in the end, the government was compelled to hold a public inquiry.
They were ordered
and this
to.
Inquiry, by the way, is not solely based on Chinese foreign interference, although clearly that has been largely the focus of the public hearings that we've heard so far, but it also deals with Russian interference and interference by Iran, as well as Pakistan and India.
So we have actual Russian interference. You know how the U.S. was crying about Russian interference in their elections? Yeah, no, we have actual Russian interference along with Iran, Pakistan, and India. So we have China, Russia, Iran, Pakistan, and India fucking around in our government system. We have 5 countries mucking about in our electoral system.
Okay. And you mentioned, Bob, this report from David Johnston that we got last summer. He was the special rapporteur looking into foreign interference.
Which was a nothing burger.
How is this inquiry different from that report that we got then?
Well, the big difference is that we have a judge who is overseeing the public inquiry. She has commissioned counsel and a staff to work with her. She has access to, I believe, more of the classified documents than Mr. Johnson, and she has also been able to declassify a significant amount of the documents.
Well, I want to ask you.
So she actually has legal power that David Johnston didn't, and she's a third party. She's non-biased, like David Johnston wasn't. Because David Johnston is all buddies with Trudeau.
This a little further, this idea of the documents and the information in them, because before the inquiry started, there were concerns, I guess, about the access to information, because a lot of these documents were dealing with national security, of course, and so there was concern that this might not be as public. But what has that been like, Bob? Like, how open has this all been?
Well, I think it's been fairly open. In many of these documents, there are large sections that have been redacted, and that's largely because CSIS does not want to identify potential sources or how they gathered the intelligence. But we are also seeing a lot of documents that explain exactly what China has been doing. CSIS says that they did interfere in both elections, They talked about how they use cash donations to help candidates, how business people will hire international students and get them to work on the campaigns of favored candidates.
Oh, interesting. No wonder there's so many international Chinese students coming to Canada.
It's pretty wide-ranging, and you're not just relying on documents that the Globe and Mail may have seen last year. You, as a Canadian citizen, can see these documents and understand that this threat is real and it is serious.
Okay, so yeah, let's go through some of the big things then, Bob, that we've learned from this inquiry. I want to start with the allegations around Han Dong. He was elected as a Liberal MP in 2019.
Han Dong,
he's now an independent MP after allegations came out about ties to a Chinese diplomat.
So he has ties to a Chinese diplomat, and there were there's CSIS evidence that he was in direct contact with high officials in China, and yeah.
But Bob, what have we learned about him and the allegations against him in this inquiry?
Well, what we learned is that according to CSIS, international high school students from China were bused to his nomination meeting on September 12, 2019. The CSIS alleged that a bus was arranged through the People's Republic of China's consulate in Toronto, and that some of these students were coerced to go and vote for Han Dong, and if they didn't, they were threatened to lose their student visas.
Now, how are high school students allowed to even go vote for a candidate? They're high school students. Were these all 18-year-olds, grade 12 students? That they had go vote? This is what I'm confused about. They had to all have been 18, otherwise they wouldn't be able to vote.
And that some of the students had false documents. Interestingly enough, when Han Dong testified at the inquiry, and boy, that was not a good day for him. He was pausing and sweating, and he did not look very good. But at the last minute, he updated his evidence that he had provided to the commission. And he said, by the way, there was another bus, and there was a bus that took Chinese students from this high school. Of course, I didn't know that at the time. I suddenly remembered it, and I talked to my lawyer, and then later on a question, he said, well, my wife reminded me of it.
I was reminded recently that by my wife that, there was a bus came in with students.
Your wife reminded you? How would your wife have even known?
Did you take any steps to advise the commission prior to yesterday about this information?
Let me look through my papers. Let me see if there's an answer here.
No.
It was 10 seconds between and no. And he's searching through his stack of papers. Wait, do I have an answer here? Do I have an answer for this question? No.
And then he went on to say that he obviously would not support the use of false documents. And when he was asked about whether he believed the CSIS documents that there was Chinese interference, not only in the election, but with him, he said, well, I have no evidence to prove that.
You have no evidence to prove that, huh? Except for the busload of students that you conveniently forgot, and then your wife reminded you of. What the fuck?
And what did we hear from senior officials about that allegation, Bob? I guess how serious they thought it was.
Well, CSIS thought it was serious enough. In September 28th of 2019, CSIS went to the national director of the party and informed him of these allegations. 2 days later, the national campaign manager, Jeremy Broadhurst, met with the prime minister in a secure room and told him all of this stuff. Mr. Broadhurst testified before the inquiry that Well, he checked with people in the nomination process. Everything was above board, and that there was no need to disqualify him. And the prime minister agreed. There was no, these were just allegations.
I had
wait, oh my God! You guys didn't even do an independent investigation. You're just like, oh yeah, this is all just hearsay. Trust me, Prime Minister. It's
Prime
fine.
Minister agreed. There was no, these were just allegations.
I had what was a brief conversation with Mr. Broadhurst to sort of agree that the threshold for overturning a democratic event like an official party nomination to find out who would be the candidate for a general election must have a fairly high threshold for
I think this would count as a fairly high threshold.
And later in testimony on Wednesday, Bill Blair, who was the public safety minister at the time, said he was also alerted about the allegations of Chinese involvement in the nomination. And he said, well, from his point of view, he wasn't clear that Han Dong was aware of these allegations, and it wasn't 100% proof that China was behind this.
And another allegation around...
What? What do you mean, What do you mean, That's all you have to say? That's it? All you have to say is, Okay.
Around Han Dong stemmed from
That's
a
kind of
report
interesting.
from Global News. This was last year, saying that he had told a Chinese diplomat to delay the release of the two Michaels, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, who were being held in China at the time. Bob, what did the inquiry learn about that allegation?
Well, David Johnson in his report said that allegation by Global was false. We finally actually got a summary of what the conversation was about.
True, I bet.
And it's not quite as black and white as David Johnston said. Yes, Global was wrong in saying that he asked the Consul General to advise China to delay the release, but he did also say, look, if you release the Michaels right now, it's not going to change the hardline attitudes that the opposition parties have towards China. And he also said to them, well, maybe you should just announce a date for a trial, so at least placate the Canadian public.
And yes, Dong acknowledged that he spoke to the Consul General about the two Michaels, but he said that he didn't recall making those specific comments.
So he actually was speaking to the Consul General as an MP, trying to like giving them actual inside information about the Conservative Party and how they feel about China, and basically saying, here's what you should do to placate the Canadian public. As a fucking MP from, what was he, Toronto? Like,
comments.
Correct.
This is crazy.
Something that came up a few times in the inquiry is questioning the accuracy of intelligence information. This is an important point here, of course. So Justin Trudeau said this in his testimony. So did National Defense Minister Bill Blair and Trudeau's Chief of Staff, Katie Telford.
We have come across errors at times, and sometimes we can also bring information and shed light on it that might cause officials to look at something a little differently.
Intelligence isn't necessarily factual evidence of what took place. If someone perceives that this has happened
wait. Intelligence isn't factual evidence?
Officials to look at something a little differently.
Intelligence isn't necessarily factual evidence of what took place. If someone perceives that this has happened
Wait. What? So intelligence isn't factual evidence. It's a perception. Are you... What about, like, all of the ways that people gather intelligence and, like, record conversations and get emails and shit that, like, are actual written proof? How can you say that intelligence is not factual evidence?
So what I am saying is that you have to take this intelligence, you have to take this information with a certain awareness that it still needs to be confirmed, or it might not be 100% accurate.
Wait, okay, I'm sorry. The intelligence people have already done that. That's why they're coming to you. The intelligence community has vetted this information, has determined it to be accurate, and is now alerting the government so that the government can take action. It's not the government's job to decide whether the intelligence is true. That's what the intelligence people do. They gather the intelligence, they then put it all together, figure out whether it's actually happening or not, and then they go and tell their government. And then their government is supposed to do something about it.
What do you make of these comments, Bob, that this intelligence has caveats?
Well, all intelligence has caveats. I mean, even with the documents we saw, they will say that this has been corroborated by 2 sources, or this is a single source but very reliable, or that one of the 4 people that have spoken to CSIS is a first-time source, so we're not sure 100% of the reliability of one of those sources. It's very surprising because, the Prime Minister was 100% assured by the CSIS reporting that India had played a role in the killing of a Canadian Sikh leader.
Yeah.
But when there is intelligence that suggests that China is favoring a liberal over conservative MPs, in fact, determined to, in the 2021 election campaign, to defeat conservative MPs, that's not reliable information.
That's what I mean. You can't, he's cherry picking. He's cherry picking, and he's also insulting the very people that are supposed to be protecting him and his staffers. He is like CSIS agents are in part of the people that protect him in his security detail. CSIS and RCMP. And CSIS is like he's basically insulting them and saying, "Oh, well, your intelligence, unless it's something that I believe, your intelligence is basically useless."
He's got a double standard here. But what is clear is that CSIS is like screaming at the top of a roof saying, "This is serious stuff here." Yeah. We even have a case where they've had a taped conversation of the then Consul General in Vancouver bragging after the 2020 election that China helped defeat Kenny Chiu, a conservative
what the fuck
MP who had taken a very hard and hawkish stance against China.
That's insane. There's a taped conversation. CSIS has a taped conversation. Sort of. Don't forget the Parliamentary Protective Service is a delegated detail. Yes. That is true. But yeah, CSIS is imploring and screaming and shouting that this is a credible, serious threat. And we've got Trudeau and his people just like, "Oh, well, it's, not all intelligence can be believed, it's up to us to vet the intelligence." It's like, what are you talking about? The intelligence agents have already vetted this information, and they've laid it out for you. They've specified which sources they're like, these sources are reliable. These sources we've just used for the first time. We're not sure about them, but here's this information. It seems credible. Like, they've vetted all of this information. It's up to the government to do something about it. It's not up to the government to then further analyze and be like, "Oh, well, we actually don't believe you, CSIS."
And the Prime Minister was asked about that on Wednesday in his testimony, and he said, well, just because a diplomat says that doesn't mean it actually happened.
The line is that they said was bragging is not doing, is what they kept saying.
Just the fact that a foreign official was taking credit for having delivered a particular outcome in no way meant that anything that particular official did actually created the outcome.
So what, that official was just like saying shit just to be silly? Yeah, China, we helped the liberals get elected. Woohoo! No, that didn't actually happen. He's just a crazy diplomat. We can't control what those crazy diplomats say. Don't you know, they're always saying stuff and taking credit for things that doesn't mean it actually happened.
Bragging is not doing.
The other factor, of course, he said, and I don't read these documents.
He was saying he was getting oral briefings.
I don't
He's getting
read
oral
them.
briefings.
I don't read the... Dude, you need to read these documents. You shouldn't just be getting I was elected to lead, not to read. Oh my God. Why must The Simpsons be so good at making real life, like, they make real life things seem like the Trudeau is the fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger president. I was elected to lead, not read. He oh my God. Oh my God. Why? Why does real life have to be the fucking Simpsons? And if it's not the Simpsons, it's South Park.
I think this is a serious issue. I agree that we can't accept all intelligence on face value, and you have to use your judgment. But when it is the totality of the documents tabled, they're pretty strong. And just try to dismiss this.
If it was one thing, then I wouldn't be so gung-ho about it. But there is ample documentation that this is happening, and you cannot look at all of that together and be like, well, it's just intelligence. You can't always trust intelligence.
This is saying that, CSIS's intelligence is just not reliable?
On this issue of intelligence documents, Bob, was this something that you considered in your own reporting, that the intelligence, I guess, has to be taken with a grain of salt, like they were saying in the inquiry?
No.
There were instances where we did not report some of the information that we saw in the documents because it would say, for example, that this came from a single source and the source is not reliable. So we didn't. So you didn't. We chose ourselves not to report that. In some of the instances, we also spoke to people who had been in senior roles in the security establishment for advice on, should we okay to write this? And in some cases, they would say, look, I don't think you should do that for reasons that could jeopardize the security of the country.
We'll be right back.
So they did, because this is hard to report on without, if you're looking at some of these documents, this is hard to report on. Bragging is not proof, then why don't they shut the fuck up about all the in Parliament about all the programs the Liberal Party has put in? That because bragging isn't doing unless they're doing it. Then it's proof. But if it's somebody else doing it, then it's not proof. It's just words.
Bob, another one of the big moments from the inquiry was about misinformation campaigns around Conservative candidates in the 2021 election, specifically around former Conservative MP Kenny Chiu and former Conservative Party leader Erin O'Toole.
Oh, they went after Erin O'Toole specifically.
What did we learn about those campaigns?
So what we learned from these documents in the testimony is that China was, and its proxies were using WeChat, other Chinese social media, and Chinese language newspapers in this and media in this country to put out inflammatory false information about the Conservatives, that they were anti-China, anti-Asia, that they wanted to register all Chinese Canadians as part of this foreign agent registry, which is absolutely not true.
Holy shit. Really? They actually reported that? Holy fuck. Wow. They went all out. They went all out. Oh, wow. They were like, remember World War II? Yeah, they want to do that again.
Mr. O'Toole testified that he believed that this disinformation campaign, which was pretty extensive, suppressed the vote in 5 to 9 ridings.
Certainly nowhere near enough to change the results of the election. But for people in those seats, if they were undergoing intimidation or suppression measures, their democratic rights were being trampled on by foreign actors.
So he believes they lost these ridings because of this disinformation campaign that China had taken on during the campaign.
He's probably right, because when you've got like stuff in your own language telling you, you know, these people, they hate where you come from, they hate your race, they want to register you. Like, they were going all for that fear tactic. And it, like Aaron O'Toole said, it didn't, you know, change the outcome of the overall election, but it's definitely enough to upset specific ridings. I gotta find it. You look up the trailer for the new movie coming out in theaters. It's called Civil War. And no, it is not a Marvel fucking movie. Okay, I will look it up. When this video is done, I'll look it up and I'll react to it.
Do we have a clear connection here, Bob, from the campaign to the government of China? Like, is that connection clear?
No, the CSIS documents say that they can't be 100% sure that it's being directed. You know, they don't have a smoking gun, in other words.
Right.
Do they have 100% proof that they have some Chinese official on a phone call saying this is what you must do? No, they do not have that. But the intelligence is still pretty strong that it was China.
Another concern in this inquiry has been whether the candidates in these elections were actually told about the attempts from China to interfere, right? So there were reports issued at the time about this. What happened there exactly, Bob?
Well, I think you really hit a very important issue. During the election campaign,
I would hope they didn't
the Security and Intelligence Threat
like
to Election Task Force, which is a group of security people that were charged with monitoring the election campaigns for foreign interference, we call that SITE, knew that this activity was going on. They knew about covertly directing financial and voting support to favored candidates. They knew about the disinformation campaign that was through social media largely that was going on by China.
Why didn't they say anything?
But they never told the candidates, or the parties, I should say, but none of them were ever told what these officials saw in terms of the documents about the warnings of what China was doing. They never told them this.
Why?
And one of the officials testified on the panel, said, well, you know, this site was a new, relatively new body, and we weren't used to sharing classified information with people, and that's why we really didn't share them.
I don't believe that. Why would you not tell anybody? Like, that doesn't make sense. Why would you not alert? Like, even if it's a new body, why would you not alert immediately of these things that are going on that you know are happening? These social media campaigns of these disinformation campaigns, these votes, like donations and voting pressure. Like, why would you not alert anybody?
You mentioned an important point there, Bob, about the potential of releasing this information to the public. Was there a concern then about sharing this with the public, about potential interference and the consequences it might have?
Well, there was one of two things was, sharing this information with the parties that these activities were going on would have been helpful to them because they may have been able to take measures to try to counter it.
I think a notice would have been helpful to Canadians that were being targeted, because these sites with algorithms that are controlled by foreign governments, those are the people that are vulnerable and that are at risk, and that I think we're failed by our system.
And then there was the second issue of whether the panel of five, we'll call it, it's called the Critical Election Incident Public Protocol, which is quite a mouthful. This group, the second issue of whether the panel of five, we'll call it, it's called the Critical Election Incident Public Protocol, which is quite...
Jesus Christ, I can't even repeat that.
A mouthful. This group of senior civil servants was charged with the responsibility of alerting the public if they felt that there was serious threats from foreign interference. They testified that they didn't believe it reached the threshold to issue a public warning, and they did not want to be in a position where it looked like they were interfering in an election campaign by coming out and saying, hey, China's trying to defeat conservative MPs. So,
oh my God, why would you be accused of interfering in an election campaign by telling the truth that China is interfering with an election campaign? Why would that make you? That doesn't make sense. This does not make any sense at all. Hey, Jesse! TGIF to you too. That doesn't make any sense. We didn't tell you because we were afraid that we would be the ones accused of interfering with an election rather than the actual people interfering with an election. What? That sounds like me and my bullshit. I didn't want to tell the truth because I didn't want to start an argument. Well, you started an argument by lying. I know. Well, what the fuck? What the fuck is that about?
So they never issued a public warning.
The last thing I want to ask you in this vein, Bob, is I want to go over the flow of information. So how much the government knew about all of this and when they knew it. How much information were senior officials getting? Like, do we know how many meetings or briefings they actually got around foreign interference?
Yeah, that would be good to know.
Well, they got a lot, and it was all laid out. According to the documents, there were 34 briefings on foreign interference from 2018 up until late 2022. They were briefings on foreign interference with the Prime Minister's office, the Prime Minister, cabinet ministers, and senior officials. We know that the Prime Minister himself had gotten 3 briefings, one on Han-Dong and 2 on foreign interference by China in 2021 and 2022.
So there's been a good amount of information passed along here. And of course, Justin being elected to lead and not read, he's been briefed.
There were a lot of warnings, and a lot of people knew about this, but nobody felt it was necessary to take any action to either alert the Conservatives or to alert the public.
The political officials who spoke about this said, there's a high bar to publicize the information, basically, to give it to the public.
Yeah, they said that the threshold was high.
Bob, how helpful has this inquiry been in answering the questions we had at the outset about foreign interference in our elections?
Probably not very helpful.
Well, I think it's helpful because the best way to deal with foreign interference is sunshine and transparency. Mm-hmm. And one of the best things about this inquiry is that we are being told in black and white in documents, but also in testimony, that there is indeed a problem and that China particularly is the greater threat, has played a very important role in trying to elect people into Parliament who would be more sympathetic to their views.
And taking all of this together, everything that we've learned here, how confident should we be as the public? Like, how should we feel about the 2019 and 2021 elections and in elections going forward, I guess? Can we have confidence in those?
I would say, here's my prediction. I would say that we can, especially now, and especially with the amount, like, it would take a noticeable interference from China this time to fuck things up. And at that point, the amount of fucking up they would have to do would be probably closer to a coup and closer to an act of war than anything. So I'm confident.
The Liberals won those elections fair and square.
Yeah, they did.
Did not have an effect on the overall results of the election campaign.
And even Aaron O'Toole is saying, I don't think this had an effect on the actual election.
Was very clear in saying that in his testimony. And he said, look, we largely lost because we blew it on the vaccine mandates. And that's where and to some extent, possibly on gun control. But he still believes that there was voter suppression in 8 to 9 ridings. And then in that case, that's serious.
That is very serious.
Yeah, well, look, if one riding is affected by this kind of disinformation, that's a serious issue, because the most important thing in a democracy is the right to be able to vote the way you want.
Yes.
Very lastly here, Bob, what are the next steps in this inquiry? Like, what happens now?
Well, we are going to hear on Friday from the CSIS director, who has been recalled because the Prime Minister said he never read some of these briefing documents and notes that outlined the clandestine and covert way that China was dealing with it.
So now they're going to call the CSIS director back and go, did you know that the Prime Minister doesn't read your shit? That's what they're going to do.
More importantly, the CSIS director said it's time for the government to wake up and start to take some decisive action, which is pretty strong criticism.
Yeah.
But once that's done, on May 3rd, there's a very tight deadline. They are going to submit a report, which they're required to do, on interference in the 2019 and 2020 election campaign. So that'll be fascinating to see what conclusion she comes to. And then there will be the second phase, which will be public hearings as well, where you're going to hear from a lot of people about this problem of foreign interference, not just from China, but obviously from other countries, and what can be done to deal with this. To come back to what I said earlier, if we're going to combat foreign interference, we need to know about it and we need to understand it. And so sunshine and transparency, the more we have, the better it will be.
Bob,
So I thought it would be very important. Oh, excuse me for the sneeze. I thought it would be very important to go over that video, because there were some things that I didn't even understand about what was in that, what was going on in the election interference. So, I thought it would be important to see that and see what it was about. Because I think it's very important that we learn as much as we can about what's going on and how much Trudeau and the top officials knew. Civil War trailer. So let's see what this movie is about that Pink Hollow said. Civil War. Who's this by? Okay, so this is the final trailer for this weird ass movie. Let's go to the live screen. And see.
All across America, critics are raving about the movie event of the year.
It is American, 100%. That's what I'm talking about.
Cool.
Okay.
We're going to DC.
Are you serious? The United States are vaporized. They shoot us on sight in the Capitol.
I've never been scared like that before, and I've never felt more alive.
Holy fucking shit!
What the fuck is this? This feels like what was that movie that came out last Christmas, Sound of Freedom? This feels like the left's answer to Sound of Freedom.
As soon as DC falls, they'll turn on each other.
Whatever happens, we don't quit. Oh my God.
You don't want to miss this.
God bless America.
Civil War.
What
Rated
the
R. Get tickets now.
What the fuck is this bullshit? What the okay, there's gotta be more. There's gotta be a longer trailer. Because that didn't show me very much. There's gotta be more to that. Because that was like...
States have seceded. The United States Army ramps up activity. The White House issued warnings to the Western forces as well as the Florida Alliance.
The three-term president assures the uprising will be dealt with swiftly.
Let me know if you want to try anything on.
19 states have
Pretty huge
seceded,
civil
huh?
war going on all across America.
We just try.
I was aware there's like a pretty huge civil war going on all across America.
We just try to stay out. With what we see on the news, seems like it's for the best.
Yeah, this is the left's answer.
Citizens of America.
To Sound of Freedom.
Forces of Texas and California.
Oh my God, the guy even sounds like he's trying to be like Joe Biden.
Of Texas and California.
Listen to this.
The so-called Western Forces of Texas and California
Have suffered a very great defeat at the hands of the United States military.
Mr. President, do you regret the use of airstrikes against American citizens? We're moving to D.C. today.
We need to go down there.
They shoot journalists on sight in the Capitol every day.
They shoot journalists on sight in the Oh my God. This is totally the left's version. Oh my God. Yeah, I found the theatrical trailer, honey.
We're moving to D.C. today.
We need to go down there.
They shoot journalists on sight in
They
the Capitol.
shoot journalists. They shoot journalists on sight in the Capitol. Because everybody hates journalists now.
Instinct in me says this is
Oh my
death.
God.
Bloody.
Every time I survived a war zone, I thought I was sending a warning home. Don't do this. But here we are.
There's some kind of misunderstanding here. What? Well, you're American, okay? Okay. What kind of American are you?
Oh, wow. This is... What kind of American are you? This is definitely... Hey, Parody Bear. You can tell it's fiction. Texas teaming up with California and a reporter wanting to report facts.
You don't know?
The Western forces will reach the White House on July 4th.
Oh my God.
Get in the car! Get in the car!
The Western forces will reach the White House on July 4th. Of course they will.
Move, move, move!
Of course they will.
You're gonna hang back.
I'm not hanging back.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go, 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 go!
What the? This is what's gonna happen when Trump takes over again!
God bless America.
Be warned, everybody! When Donald Trump takes over again, this is what's gonna happen! That's like all unconstitutional as fuck, right? And this isn't even on Netflix or Amazon, this is going to theaters. Yeah, this is, I wonder how much the streaming services are gonna charge to rent this movie. This is insane. What the fuck? Airstrikes on the people, and like this is totally this is what's gonna happen when Trump becomes president again movie. That's what this is. This is the oh my God. This is fear porn at its finest. That's what this is. This is literal fear porn. This is like, that's all I can describe it as, is fear porn. Like, this is what will happen, I promise you. Don't let Trump take over. We'll all die. We'll all die. Like, oh my God, seriously? The guy asking what kind of American are you is supposed to be the quintessential right-wing Chad, right down to short cropped blonde hair fatigues, or short cropped blonde fatigues and red fucking range glasses outside. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is... How, like, do they not understand that it's so obvious what they're doing? Or do they not care? I think it may be that they don't care. Like I said, this is the year where all the evil comes out. And it's up to us to exorcise the evil. Sorry for sounding so religious, but it's time for us to fucking get rid of all the evil bullshit. Now, I need to do an emergency bathroom trip, so I'm going to hit the be right back screen and I shall return momentarily. Please excusez-moi. Okay. We're back. So yeah, what a ridiculous movie that looks like. Oh my god. Like, that just looks absolutely ridiculous. And just as ridiculous as Sound of Freedom looked. Like, both sides are just absolutely insane. I don't understand. I don't understand why everybody is so hyperbolic. Speaking of hyperbole, it's time for question period. So this is what happened yesterday afternoon in the House of Commons. I wonder if Trudeau will be there, and if he is, if he will stay for the whole thing. Let's find out.
Questions orales, oral questions. The honourable member from Thornhill.
Oh, Michelle Landsman's taking the reins today.
We already know that the Prime Minister is not worth the cost, and after 8 years, this Prime Minister is no longer even listening to Canadians. A 23% carbon tax hike in the face of Canadians who can't afford to eat. Yesterday, this House passed a Conservative common sense motion calling on him to convene an emergency televised carbon tax meeting with all 14 premiers. The Prime Minister is hiding, but maybe someone over there can tell us what day will the televised carbon tax meeting be.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Oh, of course.
Speaker, today we are debating Bill C-50, the Sustainable Jobs Act, which the Royal Bank of Canada says there are 400,000 of to come to Canadians if we were just...
What's a sustainable job? Isn't a sustainable job, shouldn't that just be a job that you have for, like, a long time? Why do you need a Sustainable Job Act? What the fuck is that anyway? What the hell is a sustainable job? Check Twitch BP. Oh, sorry. Let me check Twitch. Oh, thank you for the bits. It's playing in the theater in your town? Oh shit, really? Thank you for the biddies, my friend. Thank you very much, sir.
Unlock the kind of prosperity envisaged in this very progressive piece of legislation. Instead,
yes, that's what we want. We want a progressive piece of legislation. That's what we really want. We don't want one that works. No. We don't want a legislation that works or that makes sense. We want a progressive piece of legislation.
20,000 amendments generated by artificial intelligence. The Robo-Caucus needs to stop its robo-work with its robo-amendments and stop gatekeeping the opportunities that are coming to Canadians.
The honourable member from Thornhill.
It's false, and that wasn't an answer. Canadians need relief and not more liberal taxes. 70% of Canadians are now saying so. 1 in 10 people in Toronto are now relying on a food bank, and more than half of Canadians are $200 away from missing their bills. If they aren't going to listen to Canadians...
Scary. More than half of the country is $200 away from not being able to pay their bills. That is scary. That is when half of the country is living on that tight of a budget, that is a big problem.
If they aren't going to give us a date, perhaps the member can tell us what channel will the carbon tax meeting be on.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the channel they should be plugged in, I don't know what it is, but it is the reality channel, because back here in the real
What the fuck was that?
Mr. Speaker, the channel they should be plugged in, I don't know what it is, but it is the reality channel, because back here in the real world, there are real jobs at stake, there are real opportunities at stake, there is affordability at stake, and these members, the Robo Caucus, with their Robo amendments, in the way of opportunity and the way of progress and clean technology in this country, they need to get out of the way, stop the gatekeeping, let Canadians create the wealth that we need to succeed.
Let Canadians create the wealth. What? We can't. You're taxing it to shit. There's no way to create the wealth. There's no... What? 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 Stop the gatekeeping. Now they're stealing conservative slogans. Now they're stealing conservative slogans and not even understanding what the conservatives are talking about when they say gatekeeping, obviously. And he's like, the channel they should be plugged into, I don't know what it is. Like, they think they're funny? And they can't even be witty when they're trying. This is sad. Come on.
Member from Thornhill.
Once again, he didn't answer the question, and I'm not really sure what that was, but if he won't listen to Canadians, and they won't listen to their NDP caucus, the Prime Minister won't listen to his successor, Mark Carney, who also wants him to meet with premiers. They won't give us a date. They won't give us a time. They won't tell us what channel to watch. The Prime Minister won't even show up here and answer to this motion. The Prime Minister is being defiant when Canadians are lining up at food banks in record numbers. What are you covering for?
Oh, she's gonna get in trouble for that. The speaker's gonna hang. Hi, Costin. The speaker is definitely going to say something, because he's not gonna be allowed. She's not gonna be allowed to say something like that without the speaker saying something.
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Oh shit, he didn't.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has repeatedly said he is all ears. If there is a better plan, put it on the table. Premier Moe himself said this was the
Oh wow, she doesn't sound like she's on Xanax today. That's good.
Keep going with it while maintaining our AAA credit rating, while maintaining the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7.
Oh yeah, Jordan, it's bad. It is bad here. They just raised the tax on carbon emissions another 23%. So now my husband has to pay $100 every time, at least $100, if not more, if he wants to fill the gas tank, which he has to do every day because he's a courier. So that's at least $100 a day in gas. You got, like, you go to the grocery store, you spend $75 for food, you get, unless you luck out and you get a sale, then you're getting maybe a couple days worth of food. It's ridiculous. Like, and you're seeing families where both adults are working full time. And you're seeing these families at food banks to get food, because even both people working full time, bringing in close to 6 figures each, is not enough to keep the family fed. This is insane what's going on in Canada right now.
And while maintaining historically low unemployment, Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House,
maintaining historically low unemployment, huh?
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After 8 years of this Prime Minister, we've suffered a passport crisis, an increase in violent crime, the doubling of rent costs, millions of people going to food banks, and criminals in our very homes. That's a great record. Quebecers are suffering because of this government's
mismanagement. I love this guy. That's a great record.
Provincial jurisdictions.
I love the way he has inflection when he translates.
To finally mind his own business.
This is my favorite translator, the British guy, because when he translates, he actually has inflection to his voice. Like, he tries to actually keep up with the French and put actual humanity behind the words. The other translators are like, I am translating because I have to translate. I am a French translating robot that can breathe. Like, it's crazy. The dual person income is because those people's mortgages went from $1,000 a month to $7,000 a month. Yep. That's true too. I'm gonna be making a big pot of stew tonight. That's why I bought all those onions, carrots, and potatoes. Ooh, stew. Yeah, groceries are half the stuff. The groceries are horrible. Oh, there we go. Groceries is another thing, because in Ireland, the price of groceries have gone off and half the stuff I can grow. Yep. Fury Kitten! Oh my god, it thinks I said something else. Better the world ban the French. Yeah, the mortgage rates are another reason why people are going to food banks. Mortgage rates have just gone crazy. And there are people who are actually paying $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month for their mortgage right now.
The Honourable Minister for Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Six affordable housing units.
Oh my God. We're going back here again.
Throughout Canada and throughout his mandate, with the collaboration of the Government of Quebec and hand in hand with municipals, 8,000 units will be built over the next few weeks. I would like to invite my...
Oh my God, now it's over the next few weeks? You're going to build 8,000 houses in a few weeks now? Yesterday, it was a few months. Jesus Christ. These people are just... wow. Okay, we're now building 8,000 houses in a few weeks. Lovely, okay.
Colleague, the member for Bellechasse-Lévis, to come with me to visit a building project in Lévis where there will be 23 affordable housing units just for that unit.
Just for that riding. Oh boy, 23 houses. And by the way, we didn't need all this affordable housing when Pierre Poilievre was housing minister, because all of the houses across Canada were reasonably priced and mortgages were reasonably affordable. So, yeah, we needed less low-income housing built because there was less need. Imagine.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Lévis. To the already long list of failures of this Liberal government, we can add a total slackness in the management of public finances and the squandering of Quebecers' money. The government spends Canadians' money indiscriminately. It has no budgetary discipline over the past 8 years, and as a result, the debt is doubling. It has not balanced a budget, and then it wants to manage the province's affairs and lecture them.
Yeah, but don't you know the budget's going to balance itself? It'll be fine. It'll be fine. 3 years is weeks, just a lot of weeks. A few weeks? The fuck? Right? Where? That's the right question. That's true. Where
Premier François Legault is adamant that this federal government should finally mind its own business. Will the government listen to him? Yes or no?
Oh, but we signed agreements with François Legault after we threatened him with no transfer payments. But we're not going to say that. We're just going to say we signed agreements with him. So why is the Bloc Québécois whining about it?
Mr. Speaker, let us talk about a former Premier of Quebec, Mr. Charest, with whom this very member sat and voted for a pollution pricing system. And so I think that the hypocrisy from that side is rather striking, especially in a context where today
why are we talking about pollution pricing when we're talking about housing?
Canada, thanks to green technology, thanks to our new economy.
Specifically, that's what the Sustainable Jobs Act is. It's specifically jobs to do with green energy and clean tech. Oh my God. Oh my God. 400,000 jobs specifically for green energy and clean technologies. And I bet you those jobs are supposed to be like high paying, another tax waste. Oh, Fury Kitten. Chicken here. 2 breasts of chicken costs like $15. Built in a few weeks, must be built with the same material China uses. IKEA housing. Yes. You use all the unused shipping containers you aren't using anymore. Oh yeah, shipping container house. I think that's a thing.
That member is against these kind of opportunities in battery factories in Quebec, for example. On this side of the House, we are for opportunities for Quebecers, Mr. Speaker.
What if people don't want to work in clean energy?
The housing issue proves that the federal government
What if they just want? What about the forestry industry? Why did you shut down the forestry industry in Quebec?
CMHC figures prove it in black and white. Since the creation of the federal...
don't look at CMHC figures. The Liberals don't like figures and statistics and shit. They just like feelings.
Area of jurisdiction.
Don't scare them.
When the federal government decides where the money goes, Quebecers get done dirty. CMHC figures prove it in black and white. Since the creation of the federal housing strategy in 2019, do you know, Mr. Speaker, how much of the funding Quebec has received?
0.
When is the federal government that chooses projects? 6.7%, Mr. Speaker. 6.7%
isn't
even a third of our fair share, Mr. Speaker. Will the government stop shortchanging Quebecers?
They've only gotten 6.7% of the housing strategy fund. That's pretty sad. I bought our house for just under $300,000 last year. Unfortunately, with interest rates, we paid almost $2,000 a month. That's not how it should be. We should be paying $980 a month. Yeah. Yeah. You can get a full chicken for £4.50? What the fuck? That's not fair. That's a whole chicken used to be like 7 or 8 Canadian dollars. But like, that's not fair. £4.50.
And transfer all the housing money unconditionally to Quebec.
Not fair.
The Honourable Minister for Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've already talked about the 6 housing units of the Conservative leaders.
Oh my Jesus Christ.
Housing units, thanks to the leadership and the partnership between us and the
Thanks to the leadership and the partnership between us and the government of Quebec. And we've now ruined Canada to the point where we need 8,000 affordable housing units to be built. But yes, let's focus on the Conservatives that were in power 9 years ago.
In her riding is no doubt aware of the Pédalo housing project with 48 accessible and affordable housing units that are adapted to climate change. That will bring
you will work in clean energy or you will be shot. Riding. No shit, that's how it seems.
I would be happy to go to that housing unit project with her to show her how important our collaboration is with Quebec and for the people of her riding. The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Quebecers constitute 20% of the population of Canada, and we receive 6.7% of federal investment in housing. When it's the federal government that chooses projects, so you don't need to be a math whiz, Mr. Speaker, to figure out that we are being absolutely ripped off. Since 2019, the money has been used mainly to fund projects outside of Quebec.
Okay. I understand that you're the Bloc Québécois and you're upset that you're only getting 6%, which, you know, like, I mean, fuck Quebec, but dude, that's fucked up. But I mean, you aren't the only province.
We are in the midst of a housing crisis, Mr. Speaker, and we are paying through our taxes to house Ontarians while we can no longer afford in Quebec to pay the rent here at home.
Seven or 8 Canadian equals 4 British pounds equals 4 British pounds ish. So a whole chicken for you still costs about $8. Yeah.
Do you now understand, Mr. Speaker, why we need to keep the federal government as far away as possible from our exclusive jurisdiction over housing? The Honourable Minister for Public Services and Procurement. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I understand that the Bloc Québécois perhaps doesn't appreciate good collaboration between the Quebec government and the federal government, but we've signed an agreement just a few weeks ago.
Collaboration. Good collaboration, meaning extortion. Yes, everybody collaborates when you extort them. That's how that works. That's why it's called extortion.
8,000 affordable housing units agreement, which is the biggest investment in affordable housing.
Oh, Quebec is getting 8,000 units? Okay.
And this is because the government of Quebec and the federal government are working together in order to allow Quebecers and other Canadians access to affordable housing. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, Montreal has seen its highest rent increase in 30 years. A true crisis that is preventing Montrealers from finding a roof under which to live. And what is the Liberal government's solution to this? To build only 35% of affordable and social housing units in the Wellington Basin.
Oh,
so,
wow.
He's offering
that's shitty.
Of housing that is not affordable. Simple question. Why use public land to build housing that Quebecers cannot afford?
That's a very good question. Why are we building houses that are unaffordable in places that people don't live? That's ridiculous. Why are we doing that? That math does not compute. And I suck at math.
The Honourable Minister for Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very happy to hear this question from my colleague. It shows once again the contrast that exists between this government and the previous government. In 2017,
oh my God.
We implemented our first national...
Why are we still comparing ourselves to the Conservative government that hasn't been in power for 9 years?
Strategy with regards to housing
Jesus
in our country's
Christ.
history so that we can... Which is a contrast to the Conservative
this is
leader
getting
who,
annoying.
when he was housing minister during his entire term and throughout the country, only built 6 affordable... Mr. Speaker, 6 affordable housing units.
The Honourable Member from London Fanshawe.
The women and men in the Canadian Armed Forces have faced a military housing shortage for decades. Under Liberals and Conservatives, military housing has now been built.
Oh, an
NDP
NDP'er.
Into disrepair. And now the Liberals want our armed forces to wait another 2 years before they even start building homes. This delay is unacceptable. Why is the minister delaying building urgently needed homes for the men and women who serve our country?
Honorable Minister for National Defense.
Yeah, Bill.
Mr. Speaker, and making sure that we provide adequate supports, particularly for housing and childcare, is absolutely essential for us to support the men and women who serve in Canadian Armed Forces. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, in our recently released defense policy, we've included a substantial investment of over $300 million to build housing. But, Mr. Speaker, that work has begun and will continue apace. And I look forward to working with all members of the Defense Committee as we bring forward important new initiatives to support the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces.
Bill Blair, the master of the non-answer. He learned from Trudeau.
The honourable member from Regina Capel.
Hey, there's Andrew Scheer.
The Prime Minister's just not worth the cost, and now his carbon tax scheme is completely falling apart. First, his own budget watchdog proved conclusively that most Canadians are worse off even with the rebate. Then he was humiliated into granting a partial carve-out because his Liberal MPs were sick of the backlash they were getting from their vote.
My ex-wife... My ex-wife's approach to Quebec was to build a 60-foot wall around it and fill it with seawater. She was from Regina, so maybe a little jaded. Hey, you know what? I think she might have been onto something.
Their voters, and now a majority of premiers are demanding an emergency carbon tax conference to put forward better ideas.
I mean, there's like one family of people I would like to get out of Quebec before we do that, but
and listen to the premier.
Other than that, fuck Quebec.
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
Mr. Speaker, later today we will be voting to advance the Sustainable Jobs Act. It is a critically important act in the context of growing an economy that will thrive in a low-carbon future. It will ensure that workers...
Oh my God, a low-carbon future. Why are we...
have a seat at the table when we are discussing Canada's...
Yes, because carbon dioxide is so bad.
At every term, include introducing 20,000 robo-amendments. We are building a strong...
How do you know? What do you mean 20,000 robo-amendments? Like, what are you alleging that they went into ChatGPT and said create amendments to a Clean Energy Jobs Act? Like, is that what you're really suggesting that they did? I think it's what they're suggesting that they did. I really think that they're suggesting that the Conservatives went to an AI generator and was like, generate me amendments to a Clean Energy Jobs Act. Go.
Strong economy for the future. Conservatives, by contrast, are engaging in legislative vandalism.
Legislative vandalism? What the fuck? Is that a thing?
Before I pass on the floor to the honourable member from Regina Capel, I'll ask all members, please only the members who do have, who are recognized by the Speaker to let their opinions be known. The honourable member from Regina Capel.
Well, Mr. Speaker, none of that is true. What is true is that yesterday in a historic vote...
Yeah, I was going to say, none of that is true. I'm waiting for Andrew Scheer to just be like, do you really think we fired up ChatGPT, Mr. Speaker, and was like, give me amendments. Yeah, well, that family needs to move to where we are. They do. They really, really do.
A majority of MPs demanded that the Prime Minister sit down and just listen to the premiers. It's baffling to understand why he's so afraid of meeting with them. It's not like they're going to ask him to put together IKEA furniture or help them move. They just want to put forward better ideas than hiking prices on everything. What is he so afraid of? Is it Doug? Is it Blaine? I know Scott Moe, Mr. Speaker. He's a really nice guy. Why doesn't the Prime Minister just meet with him?
That's funny. That's okay. That's funny. I like that. He's like, what's wrong with it? Are you afraid? He's calling them by their first names. He's like, are you afraid of them? What's the matter? They're really nice. They won't bite you. They just have ideas. You said you wanted ideas. They have them. What's wrong with you?
Mr. Speaker, Scott Moe said he sat down and pored over the data and could not possibly find a more effective way to...
What is a low carbon future? What happened to their net zero emissions bullshit? I don't know. I think they figured out that zero emissions is impossible.
In 1988, I was working in Unilever research. As an aerosol specialist, we advised that replacing all CFC propellant with butane and HFC was a bad idea as tropospheric greenhouse effect. But Fury Kitchen moderator, Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth and all the other Greenies insisted it was necessary to offset global cooling. But ad reaction.
Wait, really? In 1988, I was working in Unilever research as an aerosol specialist. We advised that all classic CFC repellent like butane, and it was damaging to the ozone and as a greenhouse effect. Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth, and all the other greenies insisted it was necessary to offset global cooling. Ah, yes! Global cooling! The thing that they were screaming about 30 years ago. They did not listen to actual scientists. Now they've had to run with it and blame everyone else for their lobbying. That's crazy. And I remember watching something about the leaded gasoline and the push that one guy that worked for, I can't remember what company it was, but he almost lost his career because the gas companies were fighting him again about leaded gasoline and how damaging it was. So this is crazy.
To combat GHG emissions than this government's policy on pricing pollution. You know, right now, today in this House, we are discussing untold employment and economic opportunity.
Untold employment. 400,000 jobs.
If you stand up for the workers at Regina Capel, we will, Mr. Speaker.
Oh. Aren't you nice?
Honorable member from Regina Leuven.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I'll invite the House Leader to come out to Regina, and Scott Moe and I can have a beer, and we can figure out what Scott really said about the carbon tax.
Oh!
Just last week, this Prime Minister raised the carbon tax by 23%. That increased the price of gas, groceries, and home heating for all Canadians. Mr. Speaker, I am unsure of why this Prime Minister is so scared to meet with all the premiers. 6, 7, 8 premiers want to meet with the Prime Minister and see what he has to say about his flagship carbon tax policy. Why won't he listen, or does he just not care?
Fair question.
The Honorable Minister for Women and Gender Equality.
Mr. What? Speaker, let's... What? First of all, why does that portfolio even exist? The Honorable Minister for Women and Gender Equality? This isn't the fucking 70s. We don't need that. Holy fuck. And also, why are you answering this question on whether the Prime Minister will meet for the carbon tax?
Let's talk about caring and young people, if we might, and affordability.
Oh,
young
shut up.
Young people said they needed a break on interest and student loans. We did that. Kids getting out of school, home savings account, which 500,000 young people now have, so they can save towards their first home. And now rent payments will build rental history, credit history, because when you pay rent, it should count. Mr. Speaker, young people have asked.
It still does. It already did.
What do you have to say? What are you going to cut? Are you going to cut these measures?
The Honourable Member, I'm sorry, thank you for reminding me, members, that all questions should come through the chair and not directly to other members. The Honourable Member from Regina Leuven.
One of the first things we're going to cut is about 70 or 80 Liberal MPs in the next election. And secondly, 9 out of 10 young Canadians believe they'll never own a home under this government. It's embarrassing, Mr. Speaker. Canadians used to be able to pay off a home in 25 years. Now it takes 25 years to save to even afford a down payment.
Yep.
This Prime Minister refuses to listen
Facts.
to our premiers. If he's so proud of his carbon tax, will the mayor of the county come out of his house and actually meet with premiers?
Yeah, why is he not here? Again.
I still want to know who F. 5 stars. You star the carbon dioxide. S. 3 stars. So bad that is what they refer to as carbon emissions. But Fury Clinton moderator. They did not listen to F.
I still want to know who fucked up the carbon dioxide shit so bad that is what they refer to as carbon emissions. Yeah. Who was the one that misspoke and said carbon dioxide instead of carbon monoxide? And like this, you know what dioxide? You know which dioxide is bad? Sulfur dioxide. You know where that comes from? Fucking volcanoes. What are we gonna do about that? We can't do shit about that. Because when a volcanoes, it's just going to do its thing, and we're going to get a whole shit ton of sulfur dioxide in the air. And then we're going to get all sorts of fun acid rain because of the carbon in the atmosphere. But we should be focusing on the carbon monoxide emissions, not dioxide.
I'd like to remind all members and as the speaker has made this point before, it's important not to call into question any member's courage. The Honourable Minister for Seniors, Labour and Seniors.
I think, Mr. Speaker, on this issue, it is very important to list the constituents. I'd like to quote Danielle from Foothills.
Oh.
She said, "I do my family's taxes, so I know we got $850. We get an extra little bump for me and my husband because we live in a rural environment. And when I go back and I look at what I spent last year in carbon taxes because I was working from home, I wasn't commuting, my gas bills were way down, and even the amount of tax that I paid on my home heating bills were principally natural gas for where I live. I would say that I probably ended up better off with that transfer. We should listen to constituents like Danielle of Foothills, Alberta." Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable.
Where do they come up with these people?
The Prime Minister has spent the last 2 weeks reminding Canadians of the disasters he has caused over the last 8 years: passports, immigration.
The Greenies are pushing for HFC propellants. This is essentially CFCs. Add to a 21. Wait, I gotta make sure that the Greenies are pushing HFCs propellants. This is essentially CFCs. Add to the 2,150 ton of greenhouse. 2,150 tons more greenhouse effect than CO2. Stop recycling paper and plant little scrubby trees for pulp. Disney's cruise liners in one season produce more CO2 than an entire domestic car usage of Europe in 10 years. Jesus. But everyone here has to go to electric. Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. Electric cars. And you guys live in a more, like, you can drive between countries in a fairly short period of time. What they're pushing for here in Canada is completely unsustainable with electric cars. Like, you can't drive, like, to drive to Ottawa on one charge would be amazing. Like, you would be probably gripping your steering wheel when you got to Ottawa going, I need a charging station, I need a charging station. You know, like...
Late job insurance payments, inflation, interest rates, and of course the doubling of rent costs. And the list is very long, and yesterday his Liberal members voted against the Conservative motion that was adopted by this House to have a meeting with all premiers. The last meeting was in 2016. Will he or will he not call this meeting? Or does he prefer to continue destroying everything through interference without consulting the provinces? What is he scared of? The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
On this
side of the House, Mr. Speaker.
This asshole.
We act. On the other hand, Canadians hear that there is absolutely no action. And no action or inaction is not a strategy. Inaction is not a plan. Inaction is not an option, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we have...
What the hell are you even saying?
We will invest in a greater number of housing units. We will invest in childcare, Mr. Speaker. We'll invest
He's
in
just
jobs.
rambling.
We'll invest in growth. Mr. Speaker,
we will print money, Mr. Speaker. We will print money.
To actually work for Canadians. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-Clérable. After 8 years of this government, let us talk about its record, Mr. Speaker.
Solar power. Solar power ain't that good up north, and even with the wind outside of a few offshore sites, they're pointless. Yep. I bet Taylor Swift puts out more CO2 every year than every car in Texas does. Probably. Do you know how much CO2 is produced to refine cobalt, nickel, and aluminium? I just said aluminium. Aluminum. Probably a lot. Not to mention the humanitarian crisis that is lithium and cobalt mining in third world countries like Bolivia. Like, holy shit. Like, there are pregnant women down in lithium mines. It's horrible.
Speaker, housing costs have doubled. Immigration waiting times are never ending. Over 800,000 Quebecers are using food banks every single month. Our streets are less and less safe. Violent crime is on the up. And bad news, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister now wants to impose his incompetence on the provinces. It's like giving the key to our house to the very vandals who have just ransacked it. Well,
not wrong. He's not wrong there.
Prime Minister finally admit that he has absolutely no skill in managing his own government and that he should, for once, mind his own business. The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, we could talk about vandals, but let us talk about climate vandals who are just on the other side of the House, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, come on. Climate vandals? Oh my god. How hyperbolic can you get? Climate vandal. How do you vandalize the climate? First of all, how do you vandalize the climate?
The member on the other side wants to know what the benefit of carbon pricing is. It's not difficult. All he has to do is look and speak to
Nobody mentions the battery replacement rate and cost. Nope. Was that even related to the question? No, it wasn't. That the Liberals are awesome at not answering, at providing answers to questions that have nothing to do with the question.
To the member right behind him, who was part of the very first government in North America to price carbon, because it's the right thing to do, Mr. Speaker. It's the right thing to do for the economy. It's the right thing to do in fighting climate change. It's the right thing to do for Canadians. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. The Minister for Immigration, Christine Fréchette, reiterated the Quebec government's minimum demands. Nothing spectacular, no exaggerations. She's not asking for full powers in immigration, just a bare minimum. Fair distribution of asylum seekers between the provinces. Reimbursement of reception costs and adequate funding for francisation. Yeah. I think that's not too much to ask.
No.
Will the government respond positively to Quebec's demands, or will we end up with yet another Liberal squabble?
Oh, don't worry. You're going to be coerced again and extorted. It's okay. Just buckle up for the lubeless ass fucking you're about to get.
Because they seem to love that. The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Mr. Speaker, what
There's
I've
also
agreed,
the problem
with Minister Frichette when I met her 2 weeks ago,
that the most
that we
cobalt-rich
would use our
country is
full
North
powers
Korea.
in our respective
That's
fields of
true.
jurisdiction under the Canada-Quebec Agreement.
Luckily, up here in Sudbury, we have a good amount of cobalt and nickel. Like up in Northern Ontario, we have a lot of cobalt. We just haven't had the right ways to extract. Like, we haven't had a government that's willing to pay to develop that, like, that sector.
In a reasonable and
I just farted. Call it climate graffiti.
reasoned way. That is what I expect to do with her over the next few months. Canadians and Quebecers will benefit from this. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the discussions are going so well that the Quebec government is thinking of holding a referendum on immigration.
Oh, Jesus Christ, really?
That Quebec is so fed up of being laughed in the face by this government that it is thinking of...
That's insane. I didn't know that.
Given the federal government's incompetence in managing its responsibilities, we all know that things would go a lot better if Quebec had full powers. Will the Minister respond to Minister Frichette's very reasonable requests, or would he prefer to wait for the entire population of Quebec to express its views on this federal government's incompetence when it comes to immigration?
Oh, shit. The Bloc Québécois is striking back. Holy fuck, this is interesting. This is interesting. We are gonna see a shakeup in the House, I think, when the budget drops. This is gonna be bad.
The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. And Mr. Speaker, there's not a country in the world that would give full powers to someone else. What I have agreed upon with Minister Frichette is that we would follow our respective responsibilities in our respective fields of jurisdiction to best serve Quebecers, and that's I will do, and that's what the Minister will do as well. The Honourable Member for Drummond. The French Prime Minister is visiting Canada and Quebec. We all know the special ties that Quebec has with this great country, the cradle of human...
Well, these people only do this stuff where they're allowed. These people don't care that China and India still produce the most greenhouse gases, or that slavery still exists in Africa, in the Middle East. Nope, they don't. She's got a very deep voice.
of human rights and secularism.
That's funny.
At a time when monarchists are proudly singing God Save the King, when the tragic history of Acadians is being trampled underfoot, I believe there is an opportunity to remind France that we still share some democratic values.
What the fuck does that have to do with anything?
To contribute in any way, either directly or indirectly, to the challenge to Bill 21 on the secular nature of the Quebec state. The Honourable Minister
then take
for
the cross.
Justice.
Take the cross down from the General Assembly then.
Mr. Speaker, as I have already mentioned a number of times, as has already been mentioned by the Prime Minister himself, with the current situation with Bill 21, when the situation reaches the Supreme Court, were it to arrive to the Supreme Court, we'll be here to intervene to defend the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and to defend rights like the right to free speech, the right to equality, and religious rights. Thank you.
The Honourable Member from
Another
non-answer.
Speaker, after 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. But don't take my word for it. Heather from Newbury writes, people need the cost of living brought under control now. And Carol from Strathroy says, one more tax will take us down. We're already struggling. To the average Canadian, the cost of the carbon tax on gas...
Why do you sound like an infomercial person?
...is punishing, not progress. So
this person, this MP literally sounds like she belongs in an infomercial. That was from St. John. I wasn't expecting that. You know, Frenchie adjacent. Yep.
So will the Prime Minister axe the tax on farmers and help make food cheaper by passing Bill C-234 in its original form?
She sounds like such an infomercial chick.
For Labour and Seniors.
All right, I thank the
honourable
member for that question, and I would allow Danielle from Foothills to continue with her comments. She also added, I would say that I probably ended up better off with that transfer. She also said, and so I think a lot of people would be of that view. That if you are going to implement some kind of revenue-neutral carbon pricing, that's probably not a bad way of doing it. Now, these are the words of Danielle from Foothills. I'm happy to inform Danielle that 2.5 years later, since she made that comment, it is now up to
oh my God, that's a comment from 2 years ago? Holy shit. Holy shit, you dishonest fucks. My eye just about leapt out of my head. See, even my prosthetic doesn't believe that he just casually was like, no, I'd like to inform her that 2.5 years after she made that comment, you don't think her opinion could have changed in 2.5 years? You don't... Holy fuck. They're quote mining from 2 years ago? Wow. Wow.
For a family of 4 in Alberta. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Well, Mr. Speaker, even the NDP Liberal Environment Chair admitted that the carbon tax has no impact on climate change. And yet, just last week, the Prime Minister increased the carbon tax by 23%, driving up the cost of gas, groceries, and home heating. If farmers cannot afford to grow food, you have failed as a government. And let me remind everyone, no farms, no food. So will the Prime Minister help bring the cost of food down for Canadians, axe the tax on farmers, and pass Bill C-234 in its original form?
Yeah, now she sounds a little bit less like an infomercial person. She sounds a little more human now.
Closing battery plants, instead of standing up against sustainable jobs,
oh my God, closing battery plants and standing up for sustainable jobs. We don't care about sustainable jobs. You know what? You know what kind of sustainable job we care about? A job that we can make sure that we're not going to lose. That's the type of sustainable job. That I don't think anybody gives a fuck whether it's a clean energy job, as long as you're getting a good paycheck that you can spend and make last a good time, a good amount of time, and then like save up some of your paycheck and also know that you're gonna be able to go to your job and know that it's there. That's a sustainable job.
And her caucus
not this
not
this clean energy nonsense.
The vast majority of the fuels they use, which are tax exempt under the pollution pricing strategy.
Oh, they're tax exempt, huh?
Supported big time by adjustment policies, because they know more than anyone that climate change is a reality. And with respect to Bill C-234, that member should walk down to the front bench and tell her opposition House Leader that he should call Bill 234 and we'll resolve it.
Hear, hear.
Wow.
The honourable member from Dauphin, Swan River, Neepawa.
This NDP Liberal government is just not worth the cost. Last week, the Prime Minister increased the carbon tax by 23%, driving up the cost of gas, groceries, and home heating. But on Tuesday, the Liberal Environment Chair revealed there is no proof the carbon tax reduces emissions. Quote, there is no data specifically stating the price on carbon resulted in an X amount of reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, end quote.
That's from their own chair of the environment, and so their own chair is like, yeah, there's no proof that this is doing anything. So why is it still a thing? Holy shit!
The Honourable Minister for Energy for Natural Resources and Energy.
On this side of the House are focused on making life more affordable for Canadians, but also
making life more affordable for Canadians. Really?
200 economists across this country have been very clear. 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more.
They've been very clear because they've been paid off.
Even the Conservatives actually used to know this before they got collective amnesia. Every one of the members on that side of the House ran in 2021 on a promise to put in place carbon pollution. The hypocrisy that comes from that side of the House is unbelievable.
Oh my God, he's yelling again because he thinks that's going to scare people.
The member from Nunavut.
First Nations and Inuit have been neglected by successive Liberal and Conservative governments for years. They have underfunded infrastructure for First Nations by $350 billion. For Inuit, the gap is $75 billion more dollars. The Liberals committed to closing this gap by 2030, but they are nowhere near their target. This means more moldy homes, more crumbling schools, and more contaminated water. When will the Liberals fulfill their obligations to First Nations and Inuit by closing this infrastructure gap?
Nope. You know why? Thank you for your donation. That's why.
The Honourable Parliamentary
They don't
Secretary
give a
to the
fuck
Minister
about you.
of Indigenous Services, rather.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for that very important question and for her advocacy in this House. We thank the Assembly for...
Why do I have a feeling that Danielle from Foothills tends to use her feet to get around? Yep, she probably does. Canada, the breadbasket of the Commonwealth. We have massive flour mills at East Float to process all the grain that came from Canada. We don't need farms, that's why grocery stores exist. The amount of people that actually think that is really sad.
First Nations for their partnership. We actually worked together with them on this report, and we welcome the important recommendations that it brought forward. We know that decades
Thank you
of
for your
underinvestment
donation.
and discrimination have led to this infrastructure deficit, which is indeed a crisis for Indigenous peoples across this country. Our government has put a stop to this with
faster.
record investments by dramatically increasing up to 1,100% since 2016. We are taking action to close that infrastructure gap, and we will not stop until it is done.
What kind of fast talk and non-answer bullshit was that?
The Honourable Member from Skeena Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, there are many residential school survivors and family members of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls in British Columbia who are non-status. And this week, they're learning that their access to counseling is being cut off because the Liberals, like the Conservatives before them, are underfunding First Nations health. These are community members who've experienced serious trauma and for whom counseling is a key part of their healing journey. Why is this government denying survivors access to critical counseling?
Because they don't care about Indigenous people.
Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for that very important question. Violence against Indigenous women, girls, Two-Spirit, and gender-diverse people must be put
We don't even need grocery stores. Just eat and Amazon exists.
We call the National Inquiry. We have an action
Good
plan
one,
that is
Fury Kitten.
co-developed with Indigenous partners. We made progress. For example, we built 12 new cell towers along the Highway of Tears in British Columbia. New shelters
Oh
for
boy,
Indigenous
cell
women,
towers.
support
That'll
frontline
help
Indigenous
missing and
victim
murdered
services,
Indigenous
36
women.
Indigenous-led policing services, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to do more. Bravo.
The Honourable Member from Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know better than to trust Conservatives' failed policies. On this side of the House, our government is focused on creating more good jobs, including in innovation and technology. Last
You
week,
can't even
in my
say it
riding of
right.
Kitchener South Hespeler, I was pleased to be with our government when we announced new measures from the upcoming Budget 2024 to secure Canada's AI advantage. Mr. Speaker, can the President of the Treasury Board please update this House on our government's announcement on AI?
Oh my god. Why are we getting into AI? Holy crap. Really? What are we... Is there even going to be a budget announcement at this point? We've announced everything already.
The Honourable President
And
of the
why are
Treasury
we...
Board.
Now we're getting into the dick
Thank
sucking.
the honourable member for her hard work. Last week, our government announced $2.4 billion to support artificial intelligence across this
$1.4
country.
billion
That means more
for AI.
infrastructure for AI researchers. That means more innovative AI solutions for small and medium-sized businesses. That means the creation of an AI institute, and that means the
An
responsible
AI
use of AI
institute?
across the country.
What
Unlike the conservatives who deny science, we will always support an innovative economy.
Wait. Unlike the conservatives who deny science. What? What does spending $1.4 billion on AI have to do with science denial? And also, why are we creating an institute for AI? What's that supposed to be? This chick is from the Grassy Narrows too. Where's the Grassy Narrows?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Holy shit!
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years
How long of a name was that?
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal government, life is more expensive and Quebecers are paying the price. Housing costs have doubled and lineups at food banks are longer than ever. Quebecers are struggling to feed themselves, and it's because of this Prime Minister's insistence on interfering in provincial jurisdictions. It's obvious this Liberal government isn't worth the cost. Will the Prime Minister finally withdraw from provincial jurisdictions so that Quebec can undo the damage?
Nope.
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Oh God, here we go.
We will take no lessons from the Conservatives.
I swear to God, I need somebody to donate to Streamlabs so I can get a bottle, so I can do shots for every time we hear, "We will take no lesson from the Conservative," or the climate denial. What the fuck does this have to do with the price of fish? Nothing.
We've created more housing in this country. We have a plan. We have a plan to create prosperity. What do we have?
No, you have a plan to create fucking misery.
That slogans don't create housing, slogans don't create jobs, and slogans don't create prosperity. On this side of the House, we're going to focus on issues that matter to Canadians and let Conservatives invent more slogans. Canadians know what side they're on, and we're with them. The Honourable Member.
No, you're not. Because we do know what side we're on, and you're not on it.
8 years of this Liberal government has given us a broken immigration system, an unsustainable cost of living, sky-high crime rates, and millions of Canadians who are suffering. This Prime Minister causes problems in every area of Canadian life, and he's also intruding on provincial jurisdictions. Quebecers have clearly understood. This Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Can the Prime Minister stop spreading his incompetence and just mind his own business?
Nope.
The Honourable Minister for Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Minding our business means investing in daycare and housing and high-speed internet. It's also about investing so that the children in the riding of my colleague have their bellies full.
Oh my God. Stop with this socialist crap. We don't need a national food program. I would not want my kids eating a what's it called? The national school food program food. How long? This is, they've been in power for 8 years now. Like the slogan, the ballot budget will balance itself? You mean those types of slogans? Ah, you can't. Or, this guy has one hell of a woman voice. We will take no lesson, or puts fingers in ears and goes la 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 la, not listening, poopy heads. Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much what they're doing.
We announced an investment that's going to help 400,000 children, hundreds of which live in his riding, to go to school with full bellies. So that
full
they can
bellies
learn
of
and
food
develop
truck food.
To their full potential.
And not even good food truck food. Like the food, the processed, like Cisco food. That hospitals get.
After 8 long years, the Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Food banks no longer meet demand. The cost of rents and mortgages doubled. The dream of first home ownership is nearly impossible for our young people.
Yup.
For 8 years, it's invaded provincial jurisdictions, and Quebecers' quality of life is worse. Instead of imposing his incompetence on the province, could he please just mind his own business? The Honourable Leader of the Government.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, this member, like all Conservative MPs in Quebec, I would like them to talk to their leader because they're getting in the way of 400,000 possible jobs thanks to green technology.
Oh boy, green technology. Yay! We love green technology. National Food Program. In World War II, we called that rationing.
Like in Quebec, the battery plant will create thousands of jobs. This member knows full well that Quebec will prosper in a green economy. They should inform their leader and stop getting in the way of progress. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi.
It's from Jean Chrétien's writing.
We just have to think of ArriveCan, borders, passports, unemployment insurance, the deficit. Everything is going wrong. After 8 years, this Prime Minister has turned to failure everything that he has touched. He's insulting Quebecers even more by interfering in their areas of jurisdiction.
Not just Quebecers.
Mind his own business and
he's
let
doing
Quebec
it to Ontario.
Make its own
He's doing it to Alberta.
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Oh.
I think my colleague has amnesia because our government is the one that made the most significant investment in the history of Quebec. Northvolt is an investment that's going to build for this generation and the next. As we
do you guys even have proof for the shit you're saying that you've made the biggest investment in Quebec in its history? Like, do you even have proof?
We're investing in housing.
Or are you just saying
that
shit?
We're investing in mental health. We're investing in Canadians. We're investing
mental
in
health
prosperity.
is a provincial thing.
We're investing in Canadians, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to do so.
L'honorable député de Pierre Boucher, les Patriotes, Verchères. Le fédéral contribue pas à régler.
The federal government is not helping to solve the housing crisis. It's dragging it out even longer.
And it created it. It literally created it. It's not just dragging it out.
Money for housing to Quebec. But the Liberals have instead chosen to impose conditions on the infrastructure program, supposedly to force provinces to build housing faster. But the result of all this is that in addition to slowing down building construction, Ottawa's paralyzing construction of infrastructure. They want to see doorknobs before setting up running water. Does the minister realize that his plan is putting the cart before the horse?
That was definitely a colloquialism that did not translate well.
Mr. Speaker. The member is right to highlight the importance of investing in infrastructure, in drinking water, in wastewater treatment. We announced $6 billion, an additional $6 billion to support municipalities to help build infrastructure that will help us in Quebec and elsewhere to build the 8,000 units we've already planned with the government of Quebec, whose leadership is essential. It's a contrast with the 6 housing units that
Here we
the
go again.
Conservative leader achieved when he
with
was
the comparison of something from over a decade ago when affordable housing units were less needed.
The Liberals are shameless. Instead of making themselves useful, they've decided to be contemptuous and blackmail us with our own money, just like the Conservatives did back in the day.
Oh,
it's not surprising given the recent announcement. Quebec's
the
housing
bloc
minister made
is
it clear
just
that
shitting all
question
over everybody.
Quebec agreeing to a number of conditions to get its fair share. Quebec's cities don't belong to Ottawa. Can the minister commit to guarantee Quebec its right to withdraw with full compensation and no strings?
Nope.
The Honourable Minister for Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member is right to talk about that the Conservative leader is insulting. He insulted Quebec's municipalities, including the people in the city of Quebec. we announced.
Why? Because he called them incompetent?
The construction of 324 affordable housing units. 324 is 50 times more than all of the housing units created by the Conservative leader when he was the Minister of Housing.
The honourable member from Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After 8 years, Canadians are struggling to make ends meet due to the Liberal NDP's crippling carbon taxes. They're all economic pain and no environmental gain. Just last week, the Prime Minister increased the carbon tax by 23%, further driving up the cost of gas, groceries, and home heating. The least they could do is take the carbon tax off the farmers who feed us, which would in turn lower the cost of food. So my question is simple. Will the Prime Minister axe the tax on farmers and make food cheaper for Canadians by passing Bill C-234 in its original form?
Great question.
But all they have to do is go to the member of the House and tell him.
Was here, then it went to the Senate. Conservative senators threatened a bunch of other senators who wanted to debate the bill.
Oh, they did they?
Back in this House.
They threatened. What did they threaten? What did they threaten?
But
75% of UK food banks are set up by a bunch of labor activists that video themselves giving out food to the same people at 12 sites and then say food bank use is increasing. Wow. That's crazy. Oh, I want receipts, right? What the fuck? How could they say this shit?
And it is completely up to the leader.
The honourable minister has 20 seconds left on the clock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's rather impolite to interrupt the people answering questions, as the members across know.
Oh, shut up.
Put very simply, can be brought to the floor of this House on the simple whim of the leader of the opposition. That member should actually talk to him.
That's a good idea.
It's a good idea. Shut up, old
After 8
fogey.
years of this NDP Liberal government, Canadians are well versed in their corruption. Sadly, it's worse. Bombshell testimony on Beijing's interference in
Thank you
Canadian
for saying
elections.
something.
A senior Liberal disclosed top secret information to the then Liberal MP from Don Valley North that he was being watched by CSIS. Wow. This was a despicable breach of national security for
Broke the
Liberal
law.
partisan gain, and only very high-ranking Liberals would have access to this, a cabinet minister or a senior Liberal. Who is the person? Give us this Liberal name.
Yep. No, my left earbud died.
The honourable minister for public safety.
Mr. Speaker, we worked collaboratively with all the opposition parties last summer to set up an independent judicial inquiry into foreign interference. We've seen a number of weeks of public testimony, including this week. We didn't think Mr.
So according to Steve, all of Polyev came out and said if he gets elected, all women's rights go out the window. I asked for receipts and got yelled at. Yeah. Sure, Polyev said that. He just has a whole shit ton of women that really like what he has to say, and he's, oh my god, what a fucking retard.
Mr. Speaker, in the terms of reference, we had to put a line that would say we should have the basic respect for the integrity and independence of the commission process, not to comment on every day's appearances, but to let the justice do her work. And we look
Oh
forward to
my
report
god.
on this important issue.
Don't comment on the ongoing inquiry. Let the judge do her work. Don't bring this up. Is that really what you just said? Holy shit.
The honourable member from Dufferin-Caledon.
There's no decency or respect when a senior Liberal, either a cabinet minister or a senior Liberal staffer, disclose top secret CSIS information for Liberal gain. It's despicable. It gets worse. This compromised CSIS work. It put Liberal partisan gain over national security, and the Prime Minister must have known. When did the Prime Minister find out? When did he call in the RCMP to investigate, or were the briefing documents just a bit too long so he didn't read them?
Oh, good one. Good call out that he doesn't read it. I like that. I like that. I like that. Because the fact that Trudeau actually said, I don't read CSIS documents is fucked up.
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Again, Mr. Speaker, my colleague can repeat a series of allegations. We don't think that this is particularly constructive when a senior Court of Appeal justice is seized with this very matter, which is here. She is hearing evidence from witnesses and interviewing in camera all of the relevant officials, receiving all of the most classified documents. Why doesn't my honourable friend allow her to do this work and not continually repeat and interfere in the middle of her hearings?
Are you actually suggesting that to ask about this in the House of Commons is interference? Are you kidding me? Asking about who this person was that breached national security and informed Han Dong. Asking to name this person in the House of Commons is interference? Really? Ferguson's about to come out and say you can't say that.
Honourable members, please encourage you to listen to the person who is recognized to have the floor. The Honourable Member, Deputy de Sudbury.
Holy shit, he let it go? Ferguson let it go? Oh my god.
Canada continues to support Ukraine. We've provided
Oh look,
military
another
support and
ass-kissing
aid.
question.
We're working with our allies and our partners all throughout the world. However, we must recall that this is not the first time Russia has behaved like an aggressor towards Ukraine. Can the Minister of Foreign Affairs reaffirm our long-term commitment to Ukraine?
Can the Minister of Foreign Affairs please kiss my ass, just like I kissed hers just now?
The Honourable Minister for Global Affairs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my colleague for her important question because Ukrainians are on the front line.
Please do not bring this up again. It vexes me and I do not have a good enough answer without digging us deeper into the shit. Pretty much.
Democracy, they're fighting for their freedom and ours. Putin has
They're not fighting for our freedom. What the fuck are you talking about?
That's why we have to support
Ukraine is fighting for Canada's
and
freedom?
the world. That's why we concluded a new agreement, a $3 billion agreement for its long-term security.
A $3 billion agreement for the Ukraine's secure. Oh my god.
We've been there from the beginning, and we will continue to
$3
billion
billion
even after they achieve victory.
The Honourable Member from Carlton Trail Eagle Creek.
After 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, we see historic levels of corruption. Conservatives have uncovered a tangled web of chaos, collusion, and cover-ups in the Arrive scam scandal. Just the latest example of Liberal insiders getting rich. GC Strategies opened its doors when this Prime Minister took office. This place will make history when it summons GC Strategies to the bar to answer our questions. Why did the Prime Minister make these scamsters multi-millionaires?
I don't think I'd call them
The
gangsters.
Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Again, Mr. Speaker, because our colleague repeats something doesn't make it factual. She knows very well.
It is
Mr.
true.
Speaker.
It's true. It's literally true. It's not a fucking. It's. Oh my god. It's true. Oh my God, she didn't. Yes, she did.
That the Auditor General has looked into these matters. We've
A lot of that is
welcomed
guns, to be
parliamentary
honest.
committee review. People have been available, including senior government
It's
officials,
still a lot of-
to go before parliamentary committee.
Yeah, the Auditor General literally reported it. It's not a fucking lie. The Auditor General said it.
I'm going to ask all members, please, to restrain themselves. There were a couple of very large or loud interventions while the
Well,
minister
yeah,
was speaking.
because she's saying lies.
Hard for me to hear the answer. Sometimes difficult for me to hear the question. I ask all members, and I know I could identify the members, but they're honourable members. I ask them, please, to hold their comments back. The honourable minister has 20 seconds left on the clock.
So, Mr. Speaker, as I was saying, the Canadian Border Services Agency is conducting internal reviews on this matter.
Remember, one rifle supplied is billed at $25,000 after the optics and second barrel go out. Right.
We are also looking into these questions. We have said that anybody who has misused
We're
or
also
abused
looking into
taxpayers'
these
funds
questions, so
will be
stop
held
asking.
accountable, and we look forward to these processes coming to their conclusion.
The honourable member from Brantford Brant.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost or corruption. In the past year, this government spent over $21 billion on outside consultants. Rather than helping struggling Canadians, he's focused on making Liberal insiders richer. It's no shock that the Liberal favoured GC Strategies, who pocketed $20 million for doing nothing on the Arrive scam, was founded the same year that he took office. Will this Prime Minister
The Auditor
commit to
General
cutting
found
all
that
waste
out.
and
It's not.
corruption in the
It's
upcoming
not.
budget,
They're not
or will
just
he
pulling
continue
this
to
out
get
of their
more
ass. It's
Liberal
in the Auditor
insiders
General's
rich?
report.
The honourable minister for public safety.
Mr. Speaker, as my colleague knows, the Minister of Public Services and Procurement, the President of the Treasury Board, myself as Minister responsible for the Border Services Agency, have already taken steps to reduce reliance on outside consultants. Mr. Speaker,
Afterward,
change the process
after
for
all
approving
of this
these
money's
kind of
been
contracts.
wasted,
We'll continue to look at everything necessary to
that's
ensure
like
that
saying,
taxpayers'
Mr.
money is
Speaker,
well spent, and those people that are
we
responsible
made
for
sure
these
that the
decisions
fire
know
was
that they'll
out.
be held accountable in the case of misuse or abuse.
The honourable member from Brantford Brant.
I hope the government holds itself accountable. The Arrive scam merely scratches the surface of the rotting corruption in this NDP Liberal government. Their procurement system is seriously flawed and broken. For example, they paid KPMG, a consulting company, almost 700,000 taxpayer dollars to learn how to cut back on consultants. You can't
What the fuck?
Lunacy. They've learned nothing. The question is simple. In the budget next week, will we see a cut to all the corruption?
No, we will see an increase.
The honourable minister for Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As our colleague, the Minister of Public Safety, has said repeatedly, repeating falsehoods doesn't make those falsehoods.
Oh, so the Auditor General's report is falsehoods now, is
The
it?
Auditor General did table an important report just a few weeks ago, which found that
Which they're
rules were not
citing.
followed by a few public servants. Fortunately, many of these rules have been updated, and regulations and expectations around the use of those rules have been clearly communicated to all relevant public servants.
The honourable member from Vaughan Woodbridge.
I'm sure.
Workers in Vaughan Woodbridge and across the country have been clear, Mr. Speaker. The Sustainable Jobs Act is critical to ensure they have the tools and skills they need to build up our net
More
zero
ass
future.
kissing.
From greener buildings to electric vehicles to clean energy. The tens of thousands of conservative amendments on this legislation.
Tens of thousands of conservative amendments. How does that even happen? How do you get tens of thousands of amendments added to something? That doesn't make I
tell this house.
How are they even like where's the receipts for this?
The honourable minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Where is
Today
the
we are
receipts
in this
for
House
this?
fighting
Tens of
for
thousands
workers
of
and communities
amendments.
in Canada so we can create sustainable jobs moving forward. We will grow the economy and we will fight climate change. Standing in the way of workers is the Conservative leader, a proud supporter of notorious anti-worker legislation, including C-377.
Yes, an anti-worker. Yes, he's definitely anti-worker. That's so sure. Oh my God. I swear they're just saying things to hear themselves talk. They know they're lying.
As many times as it takes to get it done.
Oh my God, you're just gonna vote and vote and vote till you win?
The honourable member for
Really?
Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, today I met with Mansour Shuman, a Palestinian Canadian who risked his life to report on the devastation and horror of the war in Gaza. Weeks ago, the Liberals promised to stop selling military goods to Netanyahu and to sanction extremists.
Shut up, you
Innocent
NDP
children
bitch.
continue to die. They haven't issued export notices or announced sanctions. This is a betrayal of the hundreds of thousands of Canadians who want peace for Palestinians and Israelis. We need a two-way arms embargo and sanctions. How many more people will die before this government acts?
Here, here.
Instead of paying off outside NGOs, we have now put them in a place where they are the only one capable of carrying out the task. Sorry. Due to our integration process to cut government spending. 10,000 amendments, that means there's more words there than a year's worth of bill propositions. Exactly. I don't believe that for a second.
The Honourable Minister for Global Affairs.
First and foremost, I would like to say that I've talked to the mother of Mansour Shuman many times as he was obviously struggling in Gaza, and we made sure that he could come safely back home working with the Minister of Immigration on this very issue. Second, on the question of Israel-Hamas and the war, of course we know that the situation in Gaza is completely catastrophic. The violence must stop. We need a ceasefire now. We need to make sure that hostages
That's not
are released.
going to happen.
We need humanitarian aid going in. And my colleague already knows when it comes to arms, we have not sent arms.
The honourable member from Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, it's been 2 years since this government committed $1.5 billion to build co-op housing across the country. Yet 2 years later, instead of returning to annual predictable investments in deeply affordable co-op housing, this one-time program hasn't even launched. Instead, last week we heard more announcements.
Who
while
wants co-op
thousands of
housing
shovel-ready
anyways?
Co-op projects are still waiting. What's the point of making announcements if they're not going to spend the money? And when will the minister commit to these?
Oh no! Question continue. We're almost done question period anyways. So hold on.
Much needed co-op homes getting built.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing, Infrastructure
Speaker,
and
whether
Communities.
it's co-op housing, whether it's missing middle housing, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, mid-rise apartments, that is the focus of this government, building more, dealing with that crisis in supply. This is what this government is seized with. In fact, I recently met with the federation responsible for co-op housing and its advocacy in this country. They remarked how happy they were with the progress that's been made. Of course, there's more to do, but lifting the GST off of that type of construction is something that I point to the member as well. There's a larger context here as well to pay attention to. We're getting it done. We're getting that work done. We're going to see more building.
The Federation of Co-ops, they're really happy with what's going on. Trust me. Trust me. Oh my God. That's... Does anyone else remember that Gaza are the aggressors? Oh yeah, well you can't, you're not allowed to say that, because that's racist. You can't be honest. You gotta be politically correct, don't you know? Oh my Lord. That was a ridiculous question period. Holy crap. Holy crap. And Monday, I'm going to have today's question period to go over. But I think on Sunday, I will do a stream where like I go over all of the other videos that I collected over the week and that Pincalo sent me, because there's been a bunch of like Gamergate shit that has happened and I want to cover that too. But this, like, because I've had the boys, I didn't want to do over a 3-4 hour stream. So I will do a stream on Sunday catching up with all of the social media drama that I like to cover. I'm also going to do a combat hour tonight where I will not be all grumpy and quiet. So be sure to come by and watch that. And I'll be also playing tomorrow. But yeah, Sunday, don't forget, I'm going to do a catch-up coffee stream, catching up on the Stellar Blade stuff, the like all of that good fun, fun stuff. So and we'll see more about the fresh craziness too. So that's my weekend planned out. I hope you guys had fun. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream, and I will see you guys tonight for the combat hour. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later. Bye!